Okay, that seems to be working. Grand. Like I said, bugs which are being procedurally knocked out. Can people make sure they don't join the call, though? You need to only be on the chat, not the call. Okay. This stream, this council rather, is also being streamed onto NUTV. So as well as being onto the Teams call, it's also NUTV. So please keep that in mind. The instructions that are on the projection at the moment are also now in the chat as well, so you'll be able to consult that. The final notice to council is that the NUTV station manager voting place has been deputised to Miles Ogden as the deputy station manager, because otherwise that would be my vote, and I can't vote for obvious reasons. Okay, so to move on to the second item of business, minutes of the previous meeting. If there are any objections to the minutes of the previous meeting, can you please type a O in the chat? If you have any questions regarding the minutes of the previous meeting, can you please type a Q into the chat? I'll give you about a minute to go ahead of that. Thank you. Okay, so attention please everyone. To reiterate, we're currently on the second point of the agenda. If there are any objections to the previous minutes, please type an O in the chat. If there are any questions, please type a Q. I'll give you a couple of seconds for that. Okay, I'll assume those last minutes are passed. We're going to move on to the elections for vacant councillor positions. This is also slightly different because it's virtual. Remind me, Connor, what did we say we were doing with this? And then type the name in the chat. Okay, right, so elections of vacant councillor positions. So the first ones are open places. Open places are permanent places throughout council. So if you get one of these 8 positions, you'll have a voting place each council. If you don't already have a voting place each council. So if you wish to go through one of the 8 open place positions, if you can please type your name into the chat, and then also type open place, so just to clarify that's the one you're going for, and then we'll see who has nominated themselves. Okay, thanks everyone for your patience. It's inevitable there was going to be some confusion, but that's how we develop these things, and hopefully November forward it'll be flawless. So the nominees for the open places, because no one's waving at me in a panic, so I'm assuming everyone's in, is Owen Lukens, Alex Walker, Chris Lave, William Hayes, Alex Walker, and Lewis Telford. Lloyd, you already have a place at council, so you don't have to nominate yourself. Which that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 6 people, so that's not contested. So what's your name? Stand up, please. What's your name? Okay. Any objections to... Can you stand up, please? What's your name? Okay, are you not in the chat? You just got in, okay. Those 6 people mentioned and those 2 have just stood up. Are there any objections to those applicants? Liz, yeah? Okay, do you, Ellen, do you want to put the mic on? Do you want to stand up please for us and raise your objection?
Yes, I am objecting to Alex Walker having an open place because he has exhibited a lot of irresponsible behavior in the past, which suggests that he's not suitable for the role.
So, because there's been objection to one of the nominees, the positions for open place the voting for open place will take place after council on a online platform. You can't ask questions, no, I'm afraid. No. Sorry, rephrase the question, I don't understand. Sorry, so everybody needs to be voted on no. Okay, grand, right. So moving on to the next point of the agenda is for campaigns representative. I think that sits on, Abby, does that sit in your committee?
Okay, does that sit on my committee?
Welfare. Brianna, would you be kind enough to explain the welfare representative, please, for the council? If you could stand up, that's all right as well.
Of course, so the Welfare Committee, they sit with me and it's a place to bounce ideas, open up new discussions. It's a chance to reflect on campaigns we've got going on right now. And for me, it's really important to make sure that this is a diverse group of people.
MG and LGBT
so
officers are always going to be cross-campus, aren't they? Thanks, Brianna. Does anyone like to put themselves forward for campaigns representative? If you are, please put your name in the chat with the position. Okay, moving on. For the marginalised genders officer, this is a liberation officer position, so it will be voted on a cross-campus ballot after campus. Does anyone like to put themselves forward for the marginalised genders officer? Okay, we've received one nomination for the. You need to put your comment in the chat, not wave at me, please, as explained. We've had one nomination for the LGBT plus officer from George Wood. If anyone else would like to go for an LGBT plus officer position, which is again liberation officer role, you can please put your name in the chat. Ali Zuhad has nominated themselves for campaigns representative. If no one has any objections to that. Okay, congratulations, Ali. You're campaigns representative. Apologies, just clarifying some point of legislation, but also clarify another point. All of the open position candidates will be able to send a statement in that will get distributed to all voting members of council, so you'll be able to argue for why you should have a place on an open place. This one's fine. Okay, so we have a single nominee for LGBT plus officer, which is George Wood. Does anyone have any objections to this candidate? Nope, in which case that's passed. Congratulations, George. Okay, there's a question from Fergus. Fergus, would you like to stand up and present your question?
Yeah, just a quick one. Will the objection be put in as well next to the open places nominations? Will there be the objection next to the candidate, just or an explanation as to why there is that objection?
I think that would be appropriate to explain why it's gone to a online vote. So I think if we get Liz to email in her objection, and that'll be distributed around. Yeah, yeah. Go with these ones. Yes. Chloe Grant, you have a question?
Is there any criteria for objections, or can anyone just have an objection for any reason? Is there anything that would kind of not count, or?
So how it works is if you object to, okay, would you like to answer? Elias, order please. Elias, you've got a point of clarification request.
How many members are here and how many do we need to be quorum?
So we're at quorum. Yeah? So we're currently suspending council just so we can do a count to make sure we're at quorum. Order, please. Okay, so we have 35 members present, which is quorum. So to continue with the order paper, if there are any objections to the steering committee report, could you please say so in the chat? If there are any objections to the disciplinary committee and scrutiny committee report, please put it into the chat. Otherwise, I would love to invite Abby up to the podium to give their State of Union report. My apologies, we could ask you to give a concise version just so we can get back on time, if that's okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I don't know if I can make this particularly concise. I'll try my best. We've been in the post now for nearly 4 months, and there has been so much going on. But first of all, a huge welcome to everyone at our first Student Union Council of the Year. I want to start this report by saying thank you to Council for being so adaptable over the course of the pandemic, including putting together our first ever blended council today. It has been a time where being advocates for student voices has never been more important, and know how much you as a council empower and influence outcomes both within the SU and the university as a whole. So whether this is your first council or one of many, we as a SAB team are so happy to be here and excited for the conversations and change that we will all achieve this year as a team. So what have we been up to since June? Preparing for the return to campus and what this would look like for you was a crucial priority. Balancing your safety with urgency to get you in-person teaching without letting the university forget lessons learnt from COVID was so important to us. Your education officer has been specifically focused on looking into the way the PEC system works to evaluate its effectiveness and how it could be improved. Livia is currently producing a report informed by student opinion and has had a meeting with the faculty deans and academic registrar about the ineffectiveness of the current system and the need for concrete change, which was well received. The postgraduate officer has also worked to gather PGR student voice on the COVID-19 impact funding scheme. By taking this to PGR subcommittee, it is now in place for at least another year, and work continues on other ways we can mitigate the impact of COVID on PGRs. So well done, Eleanor. On a side note, it is also worth noting that as we enter this COVID recovery stage and we still have to wear masks on campus, I've worked with the university sustainability team to ensure that mask recycling bins are now available across campus so we can remain safe whilst minimising our impact on the environment. I know this is something that students lobbied for last year. As a team, we have recognised that the pandemic has evolved, so please know that our decisions have been underpinned by the need to support students' mental well-being and shift the culture surrounding mental health. Students should not be reaching crisis point before receiving help, and the need for this prevention with an intersectional, cross-departmental and holistic approach has been raised across the highest meetings of the university, and the need for academic schools to review with university support, the procedures in place has been written into university policy following the NSS National Student Survey results. Eleanor has also focused specifically on combating postgraduate loneliness and has already organised 4 in-person meets which have had great turnouts. Our Welfare and Equality Officer has also focused heavily on harm reduction, providing welfare stations in town during Freshers' Week and increasing literacy surrounding our drug testing kits. You can now grab yourself one of these, as well as judgment-free advice on drugs and alcohol at drop-in clinics within our wellbeing area. So well done, Bree and Kay. Student safety is a huge priority for us, and investigation action points into the report and support system have also been made. Brianna has also been working with a beautiful amount of energy on Our Black History, her campaign for Black History Month, which is happening as we speak. There are 3 weeks of events that take a collective look at Black History Month as a time to celebrate our Black community and our power to facilitate change. The launch event is tomorrow, so we'll be really excited to see you all there. The Your Voice team has also collated significant information on how decolonising NCL has been received within schools and worked with student services to create a methodology for analysing how to decolonise. We have also engaged with our Singapore campus. An area that has improved the well-being of our athletics union officer is that Buck Wednesdays are back, albeit with some pressing transport concerns after our coach provider pulled all transport due to the national shortage in drivers and fuel. This has put a strain, to say the least, on resources. However, the activities team continue to work so hard on making sure these fixtures go ahead so as not to disappoint our students, whilst ensuring the financial longevity of this by negotiating new long-term contracts. We cannot recommend enough that people go along to the sports centre, to Cochrane Park or to Long Benton to go and watch. A quote the Courier might want to adopt from our athletic union officer is, "Sport is back and it's bloody fantastic." Speaking of the Courier, congratulations to the team who have completed their welcome issue and distributed 5,000 copies to students. All new sub-editors have been trained in WordPress to ensure that writers can have their articles continue to be published online. As always in our roles as SABs, there have been challenges, and Georgia's had to continuously mitigate poor PC and virtual desktop access. However, preparations are underway for software training for sub-editors once it's back up and running. Building links between student media and the marketing department at NUSU, which has grown a lot, and Georgia's involvement in recruiting and training social media managers has all been a part of this. Student media afternoons have also been launched with attendance in the range of 75 to 100 per session, and well-regarded guest speakers come along. So I would recommend going. I think they've gone down really well, and we as SABs can't wait to see what you do this year. Another aspect of university life we are all thrilled to see back up and running is activities, and it is incredible to see the arts flourishing in person. Our Societies and Club Fair had a footfall of 16,000. According to our commercial director, I think it was around only 6,000 that apparently left the fairs, so we're yet to find the other 10,000 students that are apparently still in the student union. However, this is a really incredible turnout. Harris has taken the lead on communicating with our international students and has met with representatives from international societies. This has been a good forum for discussing issues raised by international students. Down at our capital, there are still 80 students at the London campus, and Harris and I are developing a system so that the difficulties and problems that they experience can be addressed, and we're working to ensure the representation system for our global campuses is working properly. There is also great work going on in the employability realm. Permission to turn a vacant commercial space in the SU into a pop-up shop for students where they can run their own sustainable business is something that Harris and I are getting moving. So if anyone has any suggestions, get in touch as we're at the starting stage of this. I've covered a lot of what's been happening, and a lot of my work does fit within some of the things I've mentioned, so I won't repeat it all. As president, I have been trying my best to ensure that every university meeting is as student-centric as possible. In regional and national meetings with other student unions, big issues have been discussed as a collective, and action points are being made on things such as student loans. There's going to be a lot of upcoming discussion about the changes to the potential threshold, and also how we can represent students and future generations at the Glasgow COP26 UN Sustainability event, which myself and Brianna are attending next month. I have secured an additional £33,000 of funding to the participation bursaries, which extends across all stages, which is great. So third years and postgraduates will now have access to our society bursaries. And additional funding for our trans fund and for our care leaver and estranged students has also been secured. I am also prioritising student safety, working with directors of the wellbeing team at the university and the sexual violence liaison officer for a far more effective consent and bystander training programme, as well as beginning work on editing our student charter and disciplinary procedure to shift cultures. I am also involved in steering groups on the redevelopment of student accommodation, and I'm voicing what is important to students, namely making sure it's affordable. But anyway, please know that this is just a snapshot of what is going on in the union. It's such an impossible task to summarise everything here, and I hope I've done the SABs justice. We will continue to update you on all of our efforts, conversations and actions, but know that we're here to represent you. You've elected us, so please make sure you get in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Are there any objections to the State of Union report? If so, could you please put that into the chat for us? Okay, that's accepted. There's been a request for a quick 10-minute welfare break for reasons which are completely valid. So I'm going to just adjourn the meeting for 10 minutes. We're going to come back strictly before 20 past. Use an opportunity to grab pizza and take care of stuff. Commence. Okay, so I would like to invite all of the sabbatical officers to please come to the front for questions and mandates, please. And if you could all please introduce yourselves, this is your first council, so Basque.
Hi everyone, I'm Olivia, I'm the Education Officer this year. Does anyone else want to go next?
Hello everyone, I'm Harris and I'm the Activities Officer this year.
Hi, I'm Brie and I'm the Welfare and Equality Officer this year.
Hi, I'm Fergus Mainland, the Athletic Union Officer.
Good evening everyone, I'm George and I'm the editor of The Courier this year.
Hi, I'm Eleanor and I'm the Postgraduate Officer this year.
If there are any questions for the sabbatical officers, could you please type a Q into the chat and I will go through order of...
I'm Abby, I'm President.
Chloe Grant, would you like to ask a question, please?
Thank you. I guess my question's for Eleanor. You might have heard the UPRI have confirmed plans to turn postgraduate researchers into members of staff. And I think a lot of PhD students are worried about what that'll look like for us. There's so many, it's obviously going to be a bit of a transition to move from being a student to a member of staff, and I think there'll be so many more expectations, and also the stipend and paying council tax, and there's kind of no confirmation if students are going to be worse off or not. I just wondered if you'd engage in any discussions about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a meeting with Brian Walker a couple of days ago, who's the Pro-Vice Chancellor for Research, and we spoke about this issue and how diverse opinions are going to be, and that you can't, we absolutely will not, from a university standpoint, be saying all PGRs have to be staff. Obviously, we can't control what UKRI do, but it's definitely something that we are very aware of, and myself and Brian, with the help of PGR school reps like yourself, will be looking to put a forum together where PGRs can come and share their views on employment and make sure that we have as representative a view as possible, and then take that forward of how can we improve conditions for PGRs without, like you're saying, without forcing them to be staff, and ensuring that they have the benefits and the rights of being a student, as well as meeting the needs of those PGRs who do teach and feel like they need more support in that. So 100% it will be something in the next few weeks we get that forum together and we work on that together.
Thank you. Owen Lukens, would you like to take the floor, please?
Question for Bree. Today we got an email from Harris regarding spiking. As a lot of us know, reports are quite high around the country, especially to do with injection, which is terrifying. What are your plans sort of in response to supporting students on this, but also tackling it as an issue?
Definitely. Thank you so much for your question. And I just want to say already that although there might not have been such a prominent presence on social media about this, other than the infographics we have displayed, lots of work has already been going on around spiking. Especially, you might notice that Market Shaker have done a whole lot, and this is because we've kind of put that message out there and responded to what's been going on already. But we've been meeting with local authorities, the university, and kind of wider licensing practices within the council, and pushing this beyond to a much wider city approach. I think the fact for us, you know, the other day we with Kay were ordering spikies and cup covers, and it made me feel ill that it shouldn't be anyone's responsibility to kind of change the way they're living their lives and be responsible for their safety, but we will have those barriers open. But I think for us it's taking it wider than the City Council, especially as well we've already added spiking to our report and support systems. So for us as a uni, having that evidence really does help. Obviously there's no pressure on this. We understand it can be difficult for students to sometimes go through these experiences again, but adding it there as that layer so we can have that evidence will really help, and just pushing out the lines that we can go to. But yeah, we're doing everything we can, and I will be back with updates once we have further information from the wider city on this issue. But thanks. Hopefully that clears up for a minute. But yeah, keep a lookout on our social medias, because we will be releasing a statement tomorrow with all of the actions we're taking. Oh, and one other thing, we are taking part as a sabbatical team and standing in solidarity with the Night In movement, and we've also reached out to all societies to do the same. We'll be taking a list of all of the societies and students that are happy to have their names forward, and taking these to local vendors as well, to say that we as a student community are not happy to go out unless provisions are put in place to protect students. So yeah.
Can I quickly come in? There's just one more bit. I have every 6 weeks I have a meeting with the other Russell Group SUs, and in our last meeting, which was a week and a half ago now, we actually spoke about this, and the chair of that meeting, it's a national issue, right? So the chair of that meeting is also taking it to the Russell Group, saying that all of the SUs want to see some action on more of a national Russell Group level as well. So I just thought I'd add that layer, sorry. And one more thing, concerning different issues relating to safety, and also issues relating to women's safety in particular. These are conversations we've been having in university meetings about changing the cultures right from the start of the year. And I think as a sabbatical team, we're all really, really passionate about these issues and have been embedding them into all of the meetings we sit on. So yeah, there we go.
Thank you. If there are no more questions, then thank you guys. Please sit down. Okay, the next item on the agenda are the officer reports and executive committee minutes. We pass these as a block, so I will give you guys about 15 seconds to raise any objections with an O in the chat. If there are no objections, they are considered to be passed. I said 15 seconds, I'm not even keeping count, I'm guessing, but I need a stopwatch. Can I have a stopwatch next time? Amazing. Okay, I'm going to assume there are no objections. We get to move on to the meat of council, which are the motions. So the first couple of motions are business motions. These do not get debated. These are simply passed unless objected against. So the first business motion is to rubber stamp all the motions from council on the 20th of May. So if you were here last year, you will remember that at a certain point at the meeting, quorum was no longer confirmed to have been met. So the motions were voted on, and I believe all passed provisionally. So the business motion is simply to confirm those votes and accept those motions as passed officially. So if there are any objections to motion 101, please raise it in the chat in the next 15 seconds. Amazing, that motion is considered passed. The second business motion is motion 102, annual review of policy. So this happens at every first council of every year. And essentially, the policies that have been previously voted on are reviewed, and any which are lapsed or updated, outdated or in conflict or no longer relevant, get lapsed. So there's a full list, and hopefully you've all had time to peruse through that before the motion as it was sent in advance. So likewise, if there are any objections, please type an O into the chat within the next 15 seconds. Amazing, that's passed. Okay, so move on to our constitutional. Oh, apologies, there's one more business motion. This is motion 103 to remove sub-councils from Annex C. Two more business motions. So essentially, in SAG C, it mentions sub-councils, but these no longer exist. They used to do in the past. So it's just simply a cleaning up of documentation. Any objections to this motion? Okay, that's passed. Motion 104 is an update arising from motion 304, updates disciplinary procedure. This is essentially just actioning. So this motion was passed in May, but it didn't completely change all of the things it was mandated to change. This is just completing and resolving the outstanding actions from that. So if there are any objections, please type an O into the chat. Okay, that's passed. Now we move on to the constitutional motions, and the first one is motion 301 to postpone the NUS referendum until the next academic year. Please, Mayor, can I invite Eleanor to come and propose this motion? You're going to have 2 minutes, so that's okay.
Okay, so essentially with this motion, currently we are not affiliated with NUS, which are the National Union of Students, and every 3 years constitutionally we would have to have a referendum on whether we wanted to affiliate or stay not affiliated, and myself and the rest of our SAB team are proposing that we postpone this referendum until semester 1 of the next academic year. The reason for this is we feel it's a really important debate and a really important choice to be given to our students, but it's at a time when student engagement as a whole is really low, and with the SU, and we think this could have a really negative effect on the turnout and therefore a negative effect on how representative the result is. As we said before, we're in a COVID recovery year and we're still having to deal with a lot of the unknowns of what that will mean, and that's having a big effect on student engagement. And we want to make sure that in order to put this question to the students, they are prepared, they have a wealth of information available, they know the arguments for and against each side, and they feel as though they can make an informed decision. So we think through this motion, we can mandate ourselves to share information on this issue, and hopefully ensure that students are as engaged as possible before we put this referendum to them. From Monday, we've also received confirmation that UCU, which are the lecturers' union, are putting forward a ballot to ask their members if they want to strike. If this is to go through and a strike is to happen, it is likely that it would coincide with when we would have to do an NUS referendum. And we don't feel that that would be a good time to ask students to make such an important decision when they will be looking to the union for support and help through this strike if it does happen. We don't think we should then be posing them such a big question and a referendum. We think it's better to mandate ourselves to share information towards the end of our term to ensure that in the next academic year, the next SAB team can put forward this referendum and the students will feel engaged and informed on the debate. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to open, stay there for us, I'd like to open the floor to questions. So if you have any questions, please type a Q in the chat. After questions, I'll then open the floor to for and against. So if you feel you're going to speak for or against the motion, please prepare to, but do not yet type it in, an F or an A. Muslim, would you like to take the floor, please?
All right. So my question is, what's stopping us from kind of sharing this information with the students within this year before we would have to do the referendum? Like, why does it need to take us an entire year?
We think because of the combination of the different things that we're working on as a team at the moment. We've got COVID recovery, which we're trying to constantly mitigate. We've got a spiking epidemic. We've got the possibility of strikes, which could be significantly detrimental to people's studies. And we want our time and our focus to be on mitigating those impacts and trying to, in this recovery year, make the experience as good as possible for students. And we feel something like the NUS referendum would be better posed next year when hopefully things are more normal and more easy to navigate. Thank you for your question.
Are there any other questions for this motion? Okay, if not, if you want to speak for or against the motion, can you please type an F or an A respectively into the chat? Do that all in one go. You don't need to wait for one person to type another. Just please indicate whether you want to speak for or against the motion, and I will then select people on order of that. Sorry, thank you. Okay, Abby, would you like to stand up to speak for the motion, please?
I mean, I think Eleanor did an absolutely beautiful job in representing all of our views there, so thank you, Eleanor. Yeah, I just think that there is so much going on at the moment that to pose this to the students, I don't think that it would necessarily get the turnout that it deserves. I also don't think it's necessarily a time for a huge kind of structural change within the union. I mean, it wouldn't be huge, but it would be change that we would then have to put resources into. And I just think that there are so many other areas at the moment that we need to concentrate on and our time needs to go into that Eleanor mentioned, especially the timing with a potential strike. That I really hope that everyone will appreciate where we're coming from here and vote for.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Chloe Grant to speak against the motion, please.
Thanks. I think after the past year and a half, I think if there's anything students have done, it's reflect on how they think that the union can support them. And I think maybe students will be in the position to vote on it, because I think students really know where they'll stand. And after the amount of disruption they've had, I think they'll be more aware of what they want to achieve from maybe joining the union again. So I do kind of feel that students will be thinking about it more than people would maybe expect, given the time that they have had.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Brianna to speak for the motion.
I definitely agree in the stance that students have been reflecting and seeing what the union can do, but I firstly think that if you're looking at the student that maybe might not be as engaged with the students' union as much, they probably don't have a grasp of what the overarching union can even do. And also from someone who's been working recently, running campaigns in various society events, looking what's involved, I think one, there's an uproar of students just wanting to enjoy life back to normal again. And then two, if we're looking at it from a mental health perspective, there are just so many messages going out from the university right now. And if it's taking place at the same time when we're going through a strike, there's so much more resources we could be putting into supporting students and the messaging which is going out to help them during that difficult time than joining that union, personally.
Thank you. I'll take one final against for this motion. If there is anyone, please can I just remind those who are physically present that if you are able to stand, if you could please do so. It just makes it easier for people to see you, and if need be, lip read. Obviously, if you're unable to, that's fine, but if you're able to, that would be appreciated. I'm not seeing any other against speakers. Does that come from yours? Okay. I'm seeing more speakers. Don't know why that took a while to come through, but it has. Thank you. Alex Walker, I'd like to invite you to the floor.
Good evening. We all have quite a lot of experience with referendums now, as of the last 5 years. And we're going to be having one of these every 3 years. So every 3 years, students are going to come together, they're going to vote on NUS membership. That's not really how referendums are supposed to work. I'd be fully in favour of postponing all referendums on this forever until council wants to raise one again. But just sticking it back another year, presumably because they don't think that they'll get a quorum vote to rejoin the NUS, which I think is the real reason, doesn't seem to make any sense.
Thank you. We'll now move to votes. So you should all have hopefully got the Ombia. Sure. So if everyone make sure that they've switched over from their phones to the web browser for Ombia, and we will open the votes for 30 seconds. Have we got all the votes in? Yeah, okay, voting's closed. That's passed, yeah, by 0.6%. That motion's passed. Congratulations. Okay. 4-3. Cool. There was a request which I have ruled to allow to move motion 403 to next on the item list due to availability of the proposer. So we're going to move to motion 403 and then bounce back to the 401 and 402 motion. So please could I welcome Alex Walker to propose this motion, please.
Good evening. I'd just like to begin by apologising for my irresponsible behaviour. I consider myself a rogue. So NUSU voted back in May to introduce an excellent hate crime policy to protect vulnerable students from minority groups. This, of course, includes the protection of Jewish students. However, I think it's really important to ensure that we clarify exactly what anti-Semitism is. Because of a very long history of social, religious and political factors, anti-Semitism is very, very hard to define. It takes a huge variety of forms, and crucially, there's a great deal of debate as to whether a comment or action could be construed as anti-Semitic. For this reason, I think it's important that we're all, to coin a phrase, singing from the same hymn book. Therefore, I'd like Newcastle University Students' Union to incorporate the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism, which is widely accepted and considered to be very, very good. I think it's already incorporated into the university, into the NUSU hate crime policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for this motion? Please type a Q into the chat. And if you're inclined to speak for or against it, please prepare when I say so to type an F or an A into the chat. Give you guys about 10 seconds. Fergus Mainland, would like to take the floor, please.
Just a quick one. I think or know that it's in the university. You said you think it's adopted by the university. Do you think or you know?
I don't know. I will have to check.
Owen Lukens, would like to the floor, please.
What was the previous definition that the Students' Union was using, and how does it differ?
I don't think the Students' Union is currently using a definition.
Muslim Tazia, would like to the floor, please.
Could we just go back to the previous slide? I don't want to stand up. All right. Do we go back? Can we go back to the previous slide for a second? Yeah. Thanks. Thanks.
Okay. Naveed, do you have a question? They might be on the call. Hopefully this part of the tech works. Naveed, if you want to unmute yourself, you should be able to speak. Are they still on the call? Are you hearing it, Miles? Are you hearing the Teams call? Yeah. It should be the audio box. Send a ping through? No. Yeah. Naveed, can you speak for us, please? Try again, please. Oh, there we go. Yep, amazing, grand. If you'd like to ask a question, please, Naveed. Naveed, could you please put your question into the chat? The physical speakers in the room are unfortunately not quite adequate. I apologize for that. We had a better speaker and someone's nicked it. If you could put your question into the chat, I will read it out on your behalf. I apologize for that. In the meantime, could I please... Peter, do you have a question? Fab. Okay. Whilst Naveed's writing a question into the chat, I'm going to open the floor to for and against speakers. We already have 2 people in the chat. For that, I would have preferred you to wait until I said it was okay to do so, but in this situation, I will allow it. So Muslim Tasir, would you like to speak against the motion, please? So you can sit down, that's fine. Thank you.
Huge problem at this university, and we do need a definition of it, an official one. But then I'm going to go on to say that this definition, while the text of it I have absolutely no issue with, I think it's completely adequate, fit for purpose. It's the examples where I have a bit of an objection. Now, more specifically, I'm talking about the second last one that ends with saying that claiming that the existence of a state of Israel is a racist endeavor would be anti-Semitic. I disagree with that. I believe the state of Israel is a racist endeavor. It's an apartheid state, an ethno state, and an apartheid state. So yeah, it is a racist endeavor. And I don't believe that saying that should be construed as anti-Semitic because it isn't. But yeah, that's the extent of my objection.
Thank you. So Naveed's question for Alex is, in her words, can I ask what would be the benefit of a definition and what good would it potentially bring? Either is fine.
Lots of other campuses have got mired down with speakers engaged by societies who've received accusations of anti-Semitism, and I think disciplinary committees really need to understand what they're working with here. It's really complicated because, I mean, I don't agree with Muslim, but he's made a very, very good point. Me and him disagree on the definition of anti-Semitism. That's why we need one, because if we don't have one, how do we ever resolve any issues that arise around anti-Semitism?
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to invite George to speak for the motion, please.
Yeah, hi there. I was actually speaking to Bree in the break about how I think it's really vital that minorities and marginalised groups are allowed to speak for themselves and not have people who are not members of their minority speak for them. And I think realistically, listening to the accepted definition of anti-Semitism written by and for Jewish people is probably the best way to go in this case.
Thank you. Are there any other against speakers for this motion? In which case, we will move to the votes. Are you ready? Yep, so voting will now open. You have got 30 seconds. You've got another 30 seconds. And okay, as everyone's voted, so we'll close the vote. And that's passed. Congratulations. We're now going to loop back around to the first ordinary motion, and this is a late notice motion, and it's motion 4.1 to mandate sabbatical officers to conduct a cross-campus poll on potential UCU action. Please, could I invite Livia Scott to propose this motion? You have 2 minutes.
Hi, so just as a sabbatical officer team, we really understand that students have often felt really unlistened to and unheard in the past year and the past two. So the idea behind this is the UCU proposed on Monday that they would open a ballot on potential industrial action. So the idea behind this is we feel it is necessary to put it across to the students so they can inform what NUSU's stance will be. We feel that it's quite a difficult, it's quite a large decision, and we know if this was industrial action was to go ahead, that it would potentially really impact students. And as a sabbatical officer team, we don't feel that we could make that decision for the students. We are voted in to represent yourselves, and we feel that your voices should have a space to be heard, to be listened to, and then that will inform our stance. So the idea of creating the poll, it would go across campus, everyone could decide their opinion. In order to form the question, we have proposed that we would ask our different execs. So, for example, we did speak to our Education Exec on Tuesday that Eleanor and I sit on, ask their opinion on the wording of the question and the answers that would go in. Essentially, we're very, very aware that this could potentially really impact students' experience, especially after the past 2 years. And we don't feel that this is a debate that we would be able to make a stance for yourselves. That would be unfair and undemocratic. We're democratically elected sabbatical officers, so we feel that the best and the fairest way to do that would be to ask yourselves what you want our stance to be. Regardless of the stance, however, NUSU will go above and beyond to ensure that students are supported, their effects are mitigated, and that will be where our energy goes into. But we want to ask yourselves and give yourselves a space to put your ideas, put your opinions across, and then that will inform our stance.
Thank you. Without any questions for the proposer, please, you can type a Q into a chat, and otherwise prepare Fs or As if you are willing to speak for or against the motion. Okay, if there are no questions for the proposer, thank you.
Can I sit down? Just in case anyone wasn't aware. Nice definition.
That has never worked in the entirety of my laptop, and now is the moment it decides to go off. Thank you. Yes, yes, of course. I'd like to invite George Wood to speak for the motion, please.
just to reiterate a lot of what Livia said, I think it's so crucially important that the SABS team and myself and Chloe as representatives are accurately representing the voice of the entire university and not just of what we think the university, the university body would like to see. So yeah, I think it's absolutely vital to produce a poll here and to really gauge what the students' stance on such an important issue actually is.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak against this motion? Lewis Telford.
Yes, so I think the motion, in most parts, I agree with totally. I agree with having the poll. The issue that I take is that it would inform the stance. So we were speaking earlier that there might be an issue of turnout and an issue of participation for NUS. Would we not also potentially reach an issue of turnout and sort of participation in the poll? So if you're going to use the poll to inform your stance, if the poll only gets like 4% of students actually reporting to it, you could hit an issue where you're following the advice of the students that you're given, but that doesn't actually represent the general feeling if there isn't participation in that poll. So I'm just wondering if changing the wording on that so that you're not sort of forced to follow that as much, and maybe it's just more advisory and you would take more consideration based on how much participation was in the poll.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fergus Mayland, you will speak for the motion.
Yeah, I think as Liv said, I think first and foremost, I think when it comes to industrial action, if there is anything, obviously we're still waiting on that, our priority will be our students and making sure that we mitigate all circumstances to the best, and promoting the idea that our doors will still be open, and they will still be open to all of our students, as will our advice centre and wellbeing support for them. But I think as Liv said, yes, we're elected to speak on behalf of BU, but on an issue like this, which has affected students for a number of years, it's affected me for a number of years as well, strikes. I think it's important for us to gather information from you to hear how you wish us to go about any action that we do take. And I think with regard to your point, Lewis, I think with it being such a pressing thing and with it being such a passionate topic for students, we're not worried about a lack of information that will come to us. We feel it's something that those students who've been at the university for a long time will be passionate about and will want their feelings heard, and that's why we're wanting this poll to help inform our decision making.
Thank you. Could I please invite Kaylee Fraser to speak against the motion?
As much as I would like to support it, the only thing I do worry about is a conflict this could possibly create between lecturers and their students as well, because we know we do have a lot of lecturers who get passionate about these types of things. It might create, a bit of discourse between, like, change in relationships between that, and as well students with each other, because I know a lot of students have passionate conversations about these things that will probably be covered in the paper and student media as well, and we don't want a disconnect between students themselves as well. So it's the only thing I would really worry about in terms of this.
Thank you. I'm going to close the substantive stage there and move to voting, just keep being aware of time. So if you can please prepare Ombia. I'll give you guys a couple of seconds just to swap your apps over. Nat. Okay, that's voting closed. And that motion has passed. Congratulations. We're moving on over now to motion 4.2, motion to support people and planet's pledge against hostile environment. I'd like to invite Elizabeth Mead to take the floor, please. If you can take the podium for us, please.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Mead. I'm this year's President of People and Planet as well as Ethics and Environment Rep. And last year I posed this motion at the May Council and it went through so I'm not sure why it was not rubber stamped with the rest of the motions. That said, since I have to present it again, might as well do that. So basically, the UK-wide organisation People and Planet has written a pledge against the hostile environment, which encourages universities to push back against the government's policies which make life difficult for international students and migrants, because many of these policies are rooted in racism and xenophobia. These include things such as requiring international students to have a higher level of attendance that they'll be deported if they don't meet. Oh, and fun fact to all of you, that's the only reason we have the smart cards to track international students. It's not actually for your safety. So we are putting forward this motion in order to help in order to help the international students of Newcastle University, and we also feel that because Newcastle University claims to be a university of sanctuary, they should actually make good on that claim every once in a while, and basically what this motion asks NUSU to do is to lobby the university to sign this pledge, and also ask the university to meet with us on the execution of some of these points, and put out a statement endorsing the pledge.
I'd just like to remind everyone present that
when you speak from the floor, if you could please project as much as possible, both for the benefit of those in the room and also for those who are listening virtually. These microphones are meant to be sort of close range. Obviously that can't always be the case, so if you can project as much as you can, that would be of benefit. As a point of information, some of these motions weren't rubber stamped based on trustee feedback. Just to answer that as a kind of factual information point. Are any questions? I know some of the people have already put it into chat. If there are any questions for this motion, could you please indicate in the chat? I'd like to invite Ali to the floor for your question.
And half of the motion is already heard. So why is it being repeated now?
Would the chair of steering committee like to clarify that, please, in more detail? Yes, please.
Essentially, because obviously last council there was a lot of technical problems. We didn't meet quora on a few different things. So this was just something that over the summer trustee board recommended that we thought it needed more conversation on, and just to give the chance for students to speak on it and talk about it again, as we didn't feel that there was enough at council, that it was sufficiently to just rubber stamp it. We wanted to make sure people had the chance to voice their opinions and just get clarification on it just before it went straight through, with it being quite a big issue, if that's all right with everyone.
Thank you. Did you have a question as well, Olivia?
Yes, I did.
Would you like to steer in?
My question, weirdly doing it from the front, is just, I know the university is there's some work already being done within the university that, like now that the new academic year has started, particularly in regards to lift the ban, and I just want to know, would this potentially conflict if there's two things that are wanting to do very similar things? Would it potentially efforts go split rather than for the same ideas, if that makes sense? I feel like I haven't voiced that in the right way, but I'm just conscious that things have already been done. That was all.
Thank you. Yeah, Elizabeth, do you want to respond to that?
Yes. So
If you can not stand in the chair, please. Not. If you can come to the front, Lizzie, and just stay at the front for the questions. Thank you, Eleanor. Lizzie, if you can come to the front, please.
So to respond to that, I have heard various people say that things related to this are being done. However, as an international student, I have not heard of any of those things, and we are still facing many of the same problems that we faced before. So whatever they're doing hasn't really done anything for us at this juncture, and I personally think that the more voices stand behind this, the more progress we're going to make on these policy points.
Thank you. I'm now going to move to, you can sit down please now, thanks. I'm now going to move to points against and for the motion. I'm going to limit speeches to a minute from this point onwards for substantive parts. I'd like to invite Yassine Ali to speak against the motion, please.
Type turn the Q into an A, add a last minute question. I do apologise.
Okay, I'm not going to allow questions at this point. Sorry, I'm afraid. Just for time purposes. Are there any speakers against the motion? No, that is Yassine. He meant to ask a question. In which case, yes, Ali, if you'd like to speak against the motion, please.
The motion, but against the people who are leading it, because last year when People and Planet were leading this motion or like this pledge, the campaign they ran was against going against the COVID guidelines, and secondly it was going against the international officers' roles, and it was going against the sabbatical officers last year. We tried to work on it, and we are planning to like go for like a disciplinary action upon them. So I'm not sure whether we should let them lead the motion further.
I'm not really going to rule that in order. They're not. When you say leading the motion, it doesn't really matter. It's mandating the council to continue it. So if I've understood your point correctly, it's not really a speech against the motion. So I'm not going to rule that in order. Are there any actual? Chloe, would you like to speak against the motion, please? Chloe.
I think all of this, it says there's a set of policies created by the Home Office, and I don't feel confident voting on the motion because I don't know what those policies are, and this is a lot of information and I just genuinely don't understand it all, so I don't really know the implications of what this means, what it's based on, and I don't feel confident voting on it. And if this was to pass, I really don't understand what it would mean for the university. I'm not saying that I don't agree, or I do agree with the content. I'm not saying anything about that. I just don't know really what it is.
Thank you. Muslim, would you like to speak for the motion?
I'd like to say that, I mean, as an international student, I think this is an incredibly important motion. I'd like to thank Liz and People in Planet Society for bringing it. And, I mean, yeah, as, you know, living as an international student, I mean, with the threat of deportation over your head for, like, your entire 3 years here isn't exactly, you know, fun or conducive to, you know, great, stellar academic performance. I think this is something a lot of international students go through a lot of stress about. And yeah, I think if NUSU wants to support international students, taking this motion through and putting their full force behind it will be an avenue towards that. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak? Sorry, no, I know who would like to speak for the motion. Would against both. I'm going to actually leave it at there. So I just keep out my head. We'll end it at one for and against. So could we please move over to the votes? Yep, so you've got 30 seconds to vote. Yep, close the votes. And that has passed. Congratulations. I'm going to make a chair ruling to extend the guillotine by 10 minutes, which takes up to 25 past. But we have few items left on the agenda, so hopefully we won't need that long. But just to have it officially in the minutes that I've made that ruling. So the next point on the agenda are the elections for positions that are selected by council. So we'll move through these. Would the Chair of Scrutiny like to please explain to the council what Disciplinary Committee is?
That helps ensure that the disciplinary regulations met out in the NUSU constitution are met, and they vote on any form of disciplinary action. So, it's very useful. It doesn't meet that often, to be fair, and so it's not like a massive commitment of your time, but it's very, very useful. And yeah, that's about it. So yeah, please people sign up because I want a full committee. Thank you.
While you're there, Alex, would you like to explain what steering is, just when we get onto it later as well, please? No, it's not. Sorry, not steering. Apologies. I misread. It's fine. Okay, cool. Just double checking something very quick. So whilst that's happening, if I could invite the education officer to please just explain Education Executive for us. Yes, please.
So Education Exec is basically a meeting of myself and Ellen, the chair of all the school reps from across the university. It's a really nice chance for us to get to know them and them to get to know us. Like, we all went out for a meal after our last Education Exec on Tuesday, which was lush. It's just a really nice chance for us to update the work that we're doing, and it's been a really great way the school reps, those meetings have been key for me to communicate what we're doing about PECs, and for me to ask them to support and talk to people and get their feedback. It's a really nice way for me to kind of get student feedback, just to ensure that we're on the right lines, because I know we've all been students, but I want to know from you guys what's going on, and what better way than to ask our school reps. So it's just a really nice informal, it sounds very formal, but it's a nice informal way for us to just chat, catch up, and just see what work we can do and what to improve everyone's experience, really. Sounds all sunshine and rainbows, but it is really nice.
Thank you. We'll do all the explanations in one go, actually, and then just take the elections in a block. I apologise. Who is the chair for Finance and Risk Committee? Is it not? Abby, do you know what it is? To explain it? Does anyone here sit on this committee? Oh. Simon. Hi.
No, just really need to explain Finance and Risk Committee. Finance and Risk Committee is actually a trustee board subcommittee, but part of the constitution of it invites two council members to sit on behalf of council, have an overview of what's going on with the finances and the risks in the union. It meets around 4 to 5 times a year before the trustee boards, and it gives you an in-depth look at what we're doing financially wise and where the key risks are in the union.
Thanks, Simon.
It's good fun.
If you type Q in the chat, you can, yes. Owen, would you like to take the floor?
Hi, Simon. Just not that exciting question. What risks do you mean? Like risks to the charity, or like, I don't know, physical risks? What can you just explain?
We have a risk register through union, so we monitor risks that would affect the charity. So there are compliance risks, there are health and safety risks, there are financial risks, there are reputational risks. So we have around 8 different categories, and we monitor them on an ongoing basis. And if we need to mitigate measures, then we take those decisions as well.
Thanks, Simon. Thank you. Can I get the chair of steering, or one of the chairs of steering, to please introduce steering for us?
So, steering
committee is chaired by myself and Livia, and basically this is where all of the motions that are proposed for council will come to steering committee beforehand, and we just check through that they're all written correctly, that they're not asking for things that already exist, they're not asking for things that people have asked for too recently, just to make sure that everything's following the rules, everything's in line, and yeah, that's basically it.
Thank you. I'm seeing people nominate themselves in the chat. Just so we can hold off on that, we'll type in. What will happen is Laura will type in the headings. People will say their names. We'll close off a vote and move on, just so it's clearer for the minutes. But your enthusiasm is appreciated nonetheless. Finally, could I please get the chair for the Welfare Campaigns and Liberation Executive to just describe the committee for us, please, very quick.
Hiya, so I've spoken a little bit about it before, so I'm not going to repeat myself, but something I would just like to add is I think it's a really great prominent place to speak about current issues as well and how we can work together to solve these and also give your input and thoughts and ideas. But as the name suggests, it talks about campaigns, welfare issues and liberation issues. But definitely, I think for me, as I said before, making that a really diverse space with lots of different minds and people is the best way to go. So yeah.
Thank you. Just before we move on to people nominate themselves, I am personally intending to nominate myself for the disciplinary committee, so I am going to relieve myself of the chair briefly and hand over to to Anna, just to oversee this part of the thing.
We'll now be opening nominations for the disciplinary committee. If people would like to put themselves forward, could they pop it in the chat, please? So that's closed now. Thank you. Yeah, so we have Elliot, George, I presume you just putting your name forward, yeah? Yeah, perfect. Ashley, Jack, Lewis, Jeremy, Charlie, Alex, Owen, and Evie. Oh, and Elias and Harris. Oh, is there any objections? Honestly, go for Harris's role next year, someone. It's brill. So the next one is for the 4 open spaces at Education Exec. If you'd like to nominate yourself, please pop that in the chat. For the last one. Oh. Yeah, you can. Oh. Massive respect for NUTV. They're brill. Thank you. That's closed. Yeah, just about. So, Muslim, Lewis. Okay, I can't read what that says. Alex. And then Chris. Sorry, Kay's writing. Perfect. Is there any objections from anyone? No? Brill, thank you. Oh, sorry. So sorry, I didn't see. Thanks, Harris. Could you put an O in the chat, please? Because there's an objection, those are going to go to an after council vote. Do I need to bang the gavel again? So next, if anyone would like to nominate themselves forward for Finance and Risk Committee, please pop it in the chat now. Yeah. I'm going to get you a stopwatch, Harris. I'm going to look for you one for you. That's closed now, and as there is more than 2 people pop themselves forward, that will go to a vote afterwards, after council, that is. And then next, if anyone would like to nominate themselves forward for steering committee, there are 2 spaces available. Please put it in the chat. Oh, sorry, is there any objections to it going for a vote? Oh, it doesn't matter, it's going to, sorry. I am trying. If people could nominate themselves for steering committee if they would like to, please put it in the chat now. We all know the drill. Okay, brilliant. Can't wait to do that. That is closed now. Are there any objections? Oh, sorry. George and Chloe popped themselves forward for steering. Is there any objections? No. Thanks. Woo! And then next, there are 8 spaces for welfare campaigns and Liberation Exec. If you could please pop yourselves forward in the chat if you would like to be part of that. That's closed. Thank you to Jack, Lloyd, Chris, Muslim, and then George Fitzgerald. Okay. Are there any objections from anyone? Congratulations to everyone. Thank you very much. Look at that.
Okay, so to wrap things up, we have the student notices. I am going to rule that we won't do the open debate just for time reasons. Apologies for anyone who was particularly infused about their experiences of blended learning. I'm sure we'll be in the opportunity to convey that expression, but I'd like to open the floor student notice. So if you want to present a student notice, if you can just type a Q into the chat to indicate you wish to present a student notice. To kick things off, I'll just, on behalf of, I guess, council, apologise for the kind of rocky and tumultuous progressive start to council. There are a lot of moving parts. I think once we got into the rhythm of things, it started to all become normal. And hopefully, November-wise, we'll kick off from that motion. So I would like to thank, if you can please not talk over the chair, that'd be great. I'd like to thank everyone for their patience and their continued engagement and with promises what will happen in November. Owen, would you like to present your notice, please?
Yeah. Hi, my name's Owen and I do RAG. The Raising and Giving Society are having a Halloween pub quiz next Wednesday at Holy Hobo. And it will be precluded by a sober social, which is Halloween Rounders, where we're all dressed up, and there may be pumpkins being thrown at you, but it'll be safe. We'll risk assess it. But yeah, come, it'll be great, and it's for charity.
Thank you, Owen. Lizzie, would you like to present your notice, please?
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Mead. This year, the Cyber Society, of which I am treasurer, is still looking for more members. Our next event is on November 3rd. If you're interested in cybersecurity at all, there is no previous experience required, and people from all courses and levels of experience are welcome.
Thank you, Lizzie. Would Olivia Scott like to present their notice?
If anyone's really desperate to talk about blended learning, since we haven't got to, then you can email me. Just that was all it was. If anyone's really desperate to chat, you can email me.
George Butfield.
All right, so not to rival Owen's social, but the Courier are also holding a social next Wednesday in venue. For anyone who is interested in student media across the board, whether you're wanting to get involved or already are involved, please come along and meet our amazing group of volunteers. And on that note as well, Wednesdays are also when we have student media afternoons, so if you're wanting to get involved, there is where you can see all of our articles, radio shows, production opportunities with NUTV. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I have 3 more speakers, and I'm going to end it there. So apologies to the people after that. Fergus.
George, I am actually going to rival you. I'm going to put it in and say, I think as Abby said, Bucks Wednesdays are back. We've got fixtures in the sports centre, the newly developed sports centre. Cochrane Park has just been revamped in Long Benton as well. So if you're looking for high quality sport, something to get away from lectures on a Wednesday afternoon, head to one of those 3 venues.
Thank you. Brianna?
Cool. Just saying this here because it's a bit last minute. It's going to go on my social media soon, but I've been approached by the university. They partner with I'm lost for words. Basically, we're bringing CBT workshops to the university, but they're reaching out to students first to see the kind of issues and things students would like as part of these workshops. You can get a £10 Amazon voucher, and more information will be on my socials next week. And also, a big thank you to Harris today for being an amazing
Just doing my job. And finally, Kaylee, to close off.
I'm going to actually rival everyone's social things again, because NS are having a social tonight. So literally, like right after we finished here, we're going to be going down to Luther's, and we are eventually going to be a market shaker. If you would like to join eventually towards the end of the night, everyone is welcome. If you're not involved in NS, I would love to see anybody there.
So if you want to get used to hounded by journalists, come on now.
Good. Thank you everyone for attending the first council. Look forward to seeing you next month. Watch out for comms about motions. Please don't stand up. I haven't adjourned yet. Excuse me. Give me a couple of seconds. Thank you. Please watch out for comms about when the next motion deadline is. And this is your opportunity to obviously engage with student politics. Thank you. Meeting adjourned. Do we get drinks vouchers? Is that a thing? Luke. Owen Lukens.